Hello and welcome to this continuing first look. Oh, that's a long way in the future. Continuing first look exploring session looking at Old Fortunatus by Thomas Dekker. We have reached midway through what is either called Act 3, Scene 1 or Scene 6 if you're just going by a sort of sequential scene ordering system, unless you include the chorus as a scene, in which case it's scene 7. But you know, it's entirely up to you how you break these markers down. I mean, it's I don't know. There might be some crazy people out there who include prologues, in which case it's probably scene 9. I don't know anymore. Anyway, Act 3, Scene 1 or Scene 6 in most varying editions. We have sadly lost Old Fortunatus. If you're joining us, he's dead. Title character's long gone, and however, his estate of his magical hat that can take you wherever you want to go, and his magical purse, which gives you 10 gold pieces at every rummage, has been passed on to his sons. There's the profligate Andelocia and the slightly more virtuous, or shall we say, pompous Ampedo, and they're continuing to have interesting adventures, or at least Andelocia is having, in the previous scene, having inherited the gold, has said, "Oh, I'm going to pop over to England for no Ridley apparent reason whatsoever, apart from, story." So that's where we're joining. We've just had an introductory scene with people discussing various people who might be in love with other people, people we've never really met before, and however, we have just had something to hang our hat on, because we are about to be told that some interesting people that we're waiting for are going to enter, including Andelocia, and we're going to see how that now connects with the primary plot of the play. Reading through the various parts today, we have reading Lincoln, Orleans, and the personification of vice is...
It is Dan, hearkening from Montpellier, France.
Reading Longaville and Fortune, personification of fortune is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm coming to you from the northwestern United States.
Reading Andelocia is...
Lois, and I'm in London.
Reading Chester, Athelstane, Song, and Ampedo is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
Reading Cyprus, Virtue, and Shadow is...
Hi, I'm American. I'm not a shadow, but I'll try.
Reading Agripyne is...
Alan, based in Suffolk.
And reading Cornwall, Insultado, Chorus, and Montrose is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
And yes, I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading Galloway briefly, because he appears in quite a crowded scene with lots of people and we don't have much choice. But otherwise, I might be able to pass him on later on if he turns up again. But anyway, we're rejoining, I say, Act 3, Scene 1. Various people have exited the stage. We've just got Cyprus, who's still on stage, and then we have the entrance of Cornwall, and here we rejoin the action.
This fair prince, one of your countrymen, is come to court, a lusty gallant brave in Cyprus Isle, with 50 barred horses prancing at his heels, backed by as many strong-limbed Cypriots, all whom he keeps in pay, whose offered service our king with arms of gladness hath embraced.
Born in the Isle of Cyprus. What's his name?
His servants call him Fortunatus' son.
Rich Fortunatus' son. Is he arrived?
Enter Longaville, Galloway, and Chester with jewels.
This he bestowed on me.
And this on me.
And this his bounteous hand enforced me take.
I prize this jewel at 100 marks, yet would he needs bestow this gift on me.
My lords, whose hand hath been thus prodigal?
Your countryman, my lord, a Cypriot.
The gallant sure is all compact of gold. To every lady hath he given rich jewels, and sent to every servant in the court 20 fair English angels.
This is rare.
Enter Lincoln.
My lords, prepare yourselves for revelling. 'Tis the king's pleasure that this day be spent in royal pastimes, that this golden lord, for so all that behold him, christen him, may taste the pleasures of our English court. Here comes the gallant, shining like the sun.
And the trumpets sound. Enter Athelstane, Andelocia, Agripyne, Orleon, ladies and other attendants, also Insultado. Music sounds within.
For these your royal favours done to me, being a poor stranger, my best powers shall prove by acts of worth the soundness of my love.
Herein your love shall best set out itself by staying with us. If our English isle hold any object welcome to your eyes, do but make choice and claim it as your prize.
The king and Cyprus confer aside.
I thank your grace. Would he durst keep his word, I know what I would claim. Tush, man, be bold. Were she a saint, she may be one with gold.
'Tis strange, I must confess, but in this pride his father Fortunatus, if he live, consumes his life in Cyprus. Still he spends, and still his coffers with abundant swell. But how he gets these riches, none can tell.
The king and Agripyne confer aside.
Hold him in talk, and come hither, Agripyne.
But what enticed young Andelocia's soul to wander hither?
Oh, that which did allure my sovereign son, the wonder of this place.
This curious heap of wonders, which an empress gave him, he gave me. And by Venus' hand, the warlike Ampedo needs would swear he left his country Cyprus for my love.
If by the sovereign magic of thine eye thou canst enchant his looks to keep the circles of thy fair cheeks, be bold to try their charms, feed him with hopes, and find the royal vein that leads this Cypriot to his golden mine. Here's music spent in vain, lords, fall to dancing.
My fair tormentor, will you lend a hand?
I'll try this stranger's cunning in a dance.
Oh, my cunning is but small, yet who will not prove to shame himself for such a lady's love?
These Cypriots are the devils that torture me. He courts them, and she smiles, but I am born to be her beauty's slave and her love's scorn.
I shall never have the face to ask the question twice.
What's the reason? Cowardliness or pride?
Neither, but 'tis the fashion of us Cypriots, both men and women, to yield at first assault, and we expect others should do the like.
It's a sign that either your women are very black and glad to be spared, or your men very fond and will take no denial.
Indeed, our ladies are not so fair as you.
But your men more venturous at breach than you, or else they're all dastardly soldiers.
He that fights under these sweet colours and yet turns coward, let him be shot to death with the terrible arrows of fair ladies' eyes.
Nay, Insultado, you must not deny us.
Mi corazón es muy pesado, mi anima muy atormentada. No por los cielos, el pie de español no hace música en tierra inglese.
Sweet Insultado, let us see you dance. I have heard the Spanish dance is full of state.
Verdad, señor. La danza española es muy alta, majestica y para monarcas. Vuestra inglesa baja, fantástica y muy humilde.
Doth my Spanish prisoner deny to dance? He has sworn to me by the cross of his pure Toledo to be my servant. By that oath, my Castilian prisoner, I conjure you to show your cunning, though all your body be not free, I'm sure your heels are at liberty.
No lo quiero contra deseo. Vuestra ojo hace conquista a su prisionero. Oyerer la a Paban española. Sea vuestra música y gravedad y majestad paje. Dame tabaco. Toma mi capa y mi espada. Más alta, más alta. Desviaos, compañeros. Más alta, más alta.
And we'll just pause there as he dances. So, broadly speaking, this little exchange has been, hello, Spanish person, would you like to do some dancing? I'm not that keen. I'm a bit sad. I don't want to dance here in front of you lot. And then he's sort of persuaded and hold my beer. Basically, moment at the end there. You know, give me some tobacco. Here, take my cloak. Okay, I'll show you how it's done. It's quite a weird little moment. But yeah, it seems to work reasonably well. It seems like Dekker's made an effort to make it vaguely make sense, and yeah, we've got an awkward beauty standard moment in some of the exchange between Andelocia and Agripyne. Yeah, and generally, of course, once again, we've got a scene where some wealthy people say, look, there's a wealthy person over there. Maybe that person's wealth and my person's wealth would like to meet. Because that's what wealth does. It sort of has a little conflab and a get-together, and it mingles, and everybody's really happy when they're sharing their vast wealth with each other. So, yeah, thoughts in the room about this little sequence. Alan, then Briony.
I'm just wondering how Spanish, which for once does seem to be relatively accurate language rather than parody, would have landed with a contemporary audience.
I think, considering the relative simplicity of what he's saying, I think a lot of it, so long as the actor knows what he's saying, actually could be demonstrated reasonably well, because it's basically, I don't want to dance, okay, I'll dance, with some specific stuff in the middle. But yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, actually. How much do you need to know what he's saying for it to land? Briony.
It makes a nice change from Latin, one thing. But also, just I don't know, did Athelstane, he's already thinking of trying to find out where this wealth is coming from, isn't he? He wants to know. He said something about finding his golden mine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody, sensibly wants to know. Where's all this wealth coming from? Because he just always seems to have cash. And yeah, I suppose they're thinking, this golden mine, maybe there is literally, he has access to a mine somewhere. That's not unknown. Lynn.
Yeah, so, and Agrippine's father basically says, go flirt with him and see if you can find out where his money comes from. And that's icky, I think.
It's adding a sort of picture to what's going on with Agripyne, because there was a lot of really interesting questions about who she was and what game she was playing in the previous scene. So there's
like a honeypot, isn't she? Like, everybody wants Agripyne. Because Andelocia shows up and says, "Oh, she's pretty. I got money. See if we can work something out."
Rachael.
Insultado says the same thing to Agripyne too. Also, if this was on stage, I think even if the audience doesn't speak Spanish, there's so much gesture in it, because he's saying my heart, my soul so tormented, and then at the heavens, and then at the feet in the English soil, and then dancing, and he's pointing at everybody and everything. And there's also when he says to Agripyne, you're a conqueror and I'm your prisoner, conqueror to your prisoner. There's a chance to get down on his knees and take her hand and kiss it, and he's talking about and then then it gets into the action of give me tobacco, and here's my hat, here's my sword, now let's dance, come on, turn the music up.
Yeah. Get that stereo on. Let's hear some bass. Okay. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll finish the scene. Because say it's a very bitty scene in many ways. So the dancing has finished. I'm sure it went on for a while. It was jolly good. Athelstane takes up the cudgels.
Thanks, Insultado.
Is most excellent.
The Spaniard's dance is as his deeds be, full of pride.
The day grows old, and what remains unspent shall be consumed in banquets. Agripyne, leave us a while, if Andelocia please. Go bear our beauteous daughter company.
Fortune, I thank thee. Now thou smilest on me.
And exeunt Agrippine and Andelocia and ladies.
This Cypriot bears a gallant princely mind. My lord, of what birth is your countryman? Think not, sweet prince, that I propound this question to wrong you in your love to Agrippine. Our favours grace him to another end. Nor let the wings of your affection droop, because she seems to shun love's gentle lure. Believe it on our word, her beauty's prize only shall yield a conquest to your eyes. But tell me, what's this Fortunatus' son?
Of honourable blood, and more renowned in foreign kingdoms, whither his proud spirit, plumed with ambitious feathers, carries him, than in his native country. But last day the father and the sons were, through their riots, poor and disdained of all, but now they glister more bright than Midas. If some damned fiend fed not his bags, this golden pride would end.
His pride will somewhat tame, and curb the head of his rebellious prodigality. He hath invited us and all our peers to feast with him tomorrow, his provision. I understand may entertain 3 kings, but Lincoln, let our subject secretly be charged on pain of life that not a man sell any kind of fuel to his servants.
This policy shall clip his golden wings and teach his pride what 'tis to strive with kings.
Withdraw a while.
Exeunt all except for Athelstane.
None filled his hand with gold, for we set spies to watch who fed his prodigality. He hung the marble bosom of our court as thick with glistering spangles of pure gold as ere the spring hath stuck the earth with flowers. Unless he melt himself to liquid gold, or be some god, some devil, or can transport a mint about him by enchanted power, he cannot rain such showers. With his own hands he threw more wealth about in every street than could be thrust into a chariot. He's a magician, sure, and to some fiend his soul by infernal covenants has he sold, always to swim up to the chin in gold. Be what he can be, if those doting fires wherein he burns for Agrippine's love want power to melt from him this endless mine, then like a slave we'll chain him in our tower, where tortures shall compel his sweating hands to cast rich heaps into our treasury.
And exit. So, Athelstane is the cunning devil that he is. So yeah, let's just make sure that that our guest, who has all this mysterious gold, is cut off from access to the outside world, just to see where the gold might be coming from. Is it coming from Satan, or is it coming from a real world source? And yeah, we're going to try and find a way of finding out how that happens, including torture, if necessary. King Athelstane there being, a chap. Quite the chap there. So, yeah, thoughts in the room. Briony and then Eric.
I like that he's sort of keeping his hands clean in all this. So if it is some kind of deal with the devil, then fine. He can keep that deal with the devil and we'll just chain him up and take all the gold. Sorted.
Mm. Yeah. One remove from Satan. Always a good plan. Long spoon. You need that long spoon. Eric.
I was going to say that it's starting to remind me a bit of Aladdin and those kind of tales where you've got the sort of someone who rises to fame and sort of riches quite suddenly, and then people try to find out what's going on. So, for example, in this case, the magic bag and the hat would be sort of the equivalent of the magical lamp or something, which is kind of interesting, I guess.
Lois.
Yeah, I think it's also the story of Samson and Delilah, isn't it? Except that it's strength instead of gold. But I mean, using the woman to get at the secret.
And yeah, is it Briony said in the chat the very Arabian Nights? There's a lot of this that feels very Arabian Nightsy to its degree, to the nature of its settings, the way it's treating the material until now from other countries. Okay, we're now in England, but it still feels very far away. I mean, goodness only knows which Athelstane this is, by the way. And I don't think it matters. Again, we can discuss whether we can sensibly call this a history play later. Lois.
Yeah, I think the only point of calling him Athelstane is to put it in the very remote past. So at least we don't have to, blame anybody in recent history for this appalling behavior.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's pre-Norman, so it doesn't count. Right. Okay. We're going to go on to what some people call a separate scene, and some people could say it's just the continuation of scene 6. I think it's fair to say this is a separate scene, even though there is a bit of a twisty-turny entrance straight away kind of thing. But we're going to look at Act 3, Scene 2 as we have it here. Music that is sounding still. A curtain being drawn where Andelocia is discovered sleeping in Agripyne's lap. She has his purse, and she and another lady, she and another, tie another like it in its place, and then rise from him and enter Athelstane.
I have found the sacred spring that never ebbs. Leave us. But I've not shown it to your majesty, till you have sworn by England's royal crown to let me keep it.
By my crown I swear, none but fair Agripyne the gem shall wear.
Then this is mine. See, father, here's the fire, whose gilded beams still burn. This is the sun that ever shines, the tree that never dies. Here grows the garden of Hesperides. The outside mocks you, makes you think 'tis poor, but entering it, you find eternal store.
Art sure of this? How didst thou drive it out?
Fear not his waking yet. I made him drink this soporiferous juice, which was composed to make the queen, my mother, relish sleep, when her last sickness summoned her to heaven. He sleeps profoundly, when his amorous eyes had singed their wings in Cupid's wanton flames. I set him all on fire and promised love, in pride whereof he drew me forth this purse, and swore by this he multiplied his gold. I tried it, found it true, and secretly commanded music with her silver tongue to chime soft lullabies into his soul. And whilst my fingers wantoned with his hair, to entice the sleepy juice, to charm his eyes, in all points was there made a purse like his, which counterfeit is hung in place of this.
More than a second kingdom hast thou won. Leave him, that when he wakes, he may suspect someone else has robbed him. Come, dear Agrippine, if this strange purse his sacred virtues hold, we'll circle England with a wall of gold.
And they exit. I'm not going to briefly pause there because quite a lot happened, between scenes, as it were, but which have now just been related to us. And Agrippine has found out all the things, and they've substituted purses. That's quite important narrative action there. Athelstane has some big plans there for circling England with a wall of gold. Echoes there of Green and Marlowe again. We're getting a lot of those echoes in this text. Some There's that kind of plan. It makes a difference from brass, I suppose. This time it's going to be gold. So hey, why not? Eric.
There is something about this scene that basically reminds me of. Well, I don't think I was there when you read the full play, but like one of the morality plays, The Marriage of Wit and Science. I think we did a workshop on it where there was ignorance falling asleep in someone's lap, or like no, sorry, not falling asleep, just trying to spell his name, and also someone, I think it was wit turning into ignorance or something else, stealing their coat and replacing it with something else, and it was just
and which appears in all of the sort of wit, science, wisdom plays of this thing where the protagonist is sort of lulled into sleep, and while something is taken from them, in that case sort of semblance of wit, in this case literal gold mine bag territory. Rachael.
I mean, them taking the bag, I think how Fortunatus never took wisdom as the prize. Like these guys could have used it too, because isn't gold a super soft metal that sometimes you have to coat in other metals to keep it intact? Like it's not like they'll be rich, but they won't have anything to fortify that kingdom. So won't people come and take that gold?
Yeah, it's always the danger of if you have lots of conspicuous wealth, other people want to try and take it from you. We've been looking at the Siege of Antwerp recently. Other thoughts, Lois?
Yeah, I think it's just that image of lying in the lap of luxury, the lap of dalliance, whatever. I mean, it's kind of a traditional metaphor, I think. And certainly, as you say, it's in all these morality plays. Somebody later wrote about a play called The Cradle of Security, which apparently he remembered all his life, having seen as a child, where, again, somebody lies in the lap and then they come and put in this case, I think it was a false head on him or something, and he looked ridiculous. And it is Samson and Delilah as well. I mean, most of the paintings of Samson and Delilah show him sort of lying in her lap.
And I like the way that Agripyne, goes to her father. I'm not going to tell you the secret unless you swear that I get to keep it. Whereas clearly the mistake is always telling anyone about the secret, or conspicuously demonstrating the secret of the magic thing, which actually Old Fortunatus was reasonably good at concealing. He bartered his the knowledge of what his magical thing did to get himself another magical object. So you've got to be careful. It's like, if you win the lottery, do you tell anyone? Because, that can lead to more trouble than actually when, it ruins as many lives as it gains. This is the central narrative question of the entire play. Is, of course, when you're offered these things, do you take it? Or do you choose wisdom or health or something more virtuous? Rachael.
Oh, I was going to say it's kind of like that story of the horse and like the son that gets thrown off it, and so he doesn't go to war, and the dad's just like the entire time, well, who knows if it's a good thing or not? Who knows?
I think the play's being very firm about what it thinks is a good thing or not, though. But yeah. Anyway, we will continue in what is a continuation of this scene, effectively, as we still have Andelocia asleep. There's still music playing. The music seems to just this is the musicians might be getting quite tired here. I don't know if that's music still as it's still playing, or if it's a very still kind of music. I'm not sure on that front. But we've had a lot of music cues in this scene, so it seems to be going on for a while. Someone's just got it on loop. They've got a Spotify playlist that they're just leaving going. Anyway, music still. Enter Shadow, the servant, very gallant, reading a bill with empty bags in his hand, singing. No indication of the song there.
These English occupiers are mad Trojans. Let a man pay them never so much. They'll give him nothing but the bag. Since my master created me steward over his 50 men and his 150 horse, I have rid over much business, yet never was gold. I thank the destinies. Music? Oh, delicate world, though these courtiers are most sweet, triumphant creatures. Signor, sir, monsieur, sweet signor. This is the language of the accomplishment. Oh, delicious strings, these heavenly wire drawers have stretched my master even out at length. Yeah, at length he must wake. Master!
Wake me not yet, my gentle Agripyne.
One word, sir, for the billets, and I vanish.
There's heaven in these tunes. Throw the musicians a bounteous largesse of 300 angels.
Why, sir, I have but 10 pounds left.
Shadow, where's the Princess Agripyne?
I'm not Apollo, I cannot reveal.
Was not the princess here when thou camest in?
There was no princess but my princely self.
If faith?
No, if faith, sir.
Where are you hid? Where stand you wantoning? Not here. Gone, if faith. Have you given me the slip? Well, 'tis but an amorous trick, and so I embrace it. My horse, Shadow, how fares my horse?
Upon the best oats my understeward can buy.
I mean, are they lusty, sprightly, gallant, wanton, fiery?
They are as all horses are. Caterpillars to the Commonwealth, they're ever munching. But sir, for these billets and these faggots and bavins?
Sart, what billets, what faggots? Dost make me a woodmonger?
No, sweet senor, but you have to bid the king and his peers to dinner, and he's commanded that no woodmonger sell you a stick of wood, and no collier shall cozen you of your measure, but must tie up the mouth of their sacks, lest their coals kindle your collar.
Is possible? Is true, or hast thou learnt of the English gallants to gull?
He's the gull that would be taught by such gulls.
Not a stick of wood? Some child of envy has buzzed this stratagem into the king's ear, of purpose to disgrace me. I've invited his majesty, and though it cost me 1,000,000, I'll feast him. Shadow, thou shalt hire 100 or 2 of carts. With them, post to all the grocers in London, buy up all the cinnamon, cloves, nutmegs, licorice, and all other spices that have any strong heart, and with them make fires to prepare our cookery. Ere Fortunatus' son look red with shame, he'll dress a king's feast in spiced flame.
This device, sir, will be somewhat akin to Lady Pride. 'Twill ask cost.
Fetch 20 porters. I'll lay it all with gold.
First, master, fill these bags.
Come then, hold up. How now? Tricks? New crotchets, Madam Fortune? Dry as an eel skin. Shadow, take thou my gold out.
Wait, sir, here's none in.
Let me see. Oh, here's a bastard cheek. I see now, 'tis not mine. 'Tis counterfeit, 'tis slave, thou hast robbed thy master.
Not of a penny, I've been as true as a steward.
Vengeance on thee and on thy stewardship. Yet wherefore curse I thee? Thy leaden soul had never power to mount up to the knowledge of the rich mystery closeted in my purse. Oh no, I'll curse myself. Mine eyes I'll curse, they have betrayed me. I will curse my tongue that hath betrayed me. I'll curse Agripyne, she hath betrayed me. Sirens, cease to sing. Your charms have ta'en effect, for now I see all your enchantments were to cozen me.
And the music stops.
What shall I do with this 10 pounds, sir?
Now go buy with it a chain and hang thyself. Now think I on my father's prophecy. Tell none, quoth he. The virtue, if you do, much shame, much grief, much danger follows you. With tears I credit his divinity. Oh, fingers, were you upright justices, you would tear out mine eyes. Had not they gazed on the frail color of a painted cheek, none had betrayed me. Henceforth, I'll defy all beauty, and will call a lovely eye a sun whose scorching beams burn up our joys, or turn them black like Ethiopians. Oh, women, wherefore are you born, men's woe? Why are your faces framed angelical, your hearts of sponges? soft and smooth in show, but touched with poison they do overflow. Had sacred wisdom been my father's fate, he had died happy, I lived fortunate. Shadow, bear this to beauteous Agripyne, with it this message. Tell her I'll reprove her covetous sin the less, because for gold I see that most men's souls too cheap are sold.
Shall I buy these spices today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Aye, tomorrow thou shalt buy them. Tomorrow tell the princess I will love her. Tomorrow tell the king I'll banquet him. Tomorrow, Shadow, will I give thee gold. Tomorrow, pride goes bare and lust a cold. Tomorrow will the rich man feed the poor, and vice tomorrow virtue will adore. Tomorrow beggars shall be crowned kings. This no time, morrow's time, no sweetness sings. I pray thee hence, bear that to Agripyne.
I'll go hence because you send me, but I'll go weeping hence for grief that I must turn villain as many do, and leave you when you're up to the ears in adversity.
Exit Shadow.
She hath robbed me, and now I'll play the thief and steal from hence to Cyprus. For black shame here through my riots brands my lofty name. I'll sell this pride for help to bear me thither. So pride and beggary shall walk together. This world is but a school of villainy. Therefore, I'll rob my brother, not of gold, nor of his virtues. Virtue none will steal. But if I can, I'll steal his wishing hat. And with that, wandering about the world, I'll search all corners to find misery. And where she dwells, I'll dwell, languish and die.
Exit Andelocia. Okay, there's a lot to unpack out of that. I mean, jam tomorrow, no jam today. This obviously has got another magical item to go for. He can nick it from his brother. He's perfectly capable of doing that. The reason why he wants to do that is slightly interesting. I'm not quite sure where that's going, whether that's just hyperbole or an actual plan. This thing of Shadow coming in and the regular daily business of filling the bags. I think it's like, that's presumably what Shadow does every day. Just turns up with a load of empty bags and says, right, fill them up. Today, no, pumps are empty. And I love the way the music stops when he just shouts on stage. All right, yeah, figured it out now. You can stop with the magical music. Thoughts in the room. Alan, then Briony, then Rachael, then Eric. Yeah,
I mean, it's not shown in a stage direction, and there's the repeated instruction to take this to Agripyne. I presume the counterfeit purse, but it's not explicitly stated.
Briony.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously needed the wisdom more than I would have done. Because why is his plan to steal the hat to then go and cry somewhere with misery and be an emo? Steal the hat, get your purse back. It's not rocket science, man.
Yeah, just wait till the middle of the night when everyone's asleep and just say, "Take me to my magic bag," and ta-da! You have the magic bag back. I mean, his father stole the magic bag by using his brains. Surely you have you inherited some from your father to figure out that as a plan. Anyway, Rachael.
I was gonna say the same thing, but what is with the wood? What was all this talk of wood?
Isn't it he's supposed to be organising some great feast and things? So there's the king's already said he's going to cut him off from access to suppliers and things. So I think it's to do with that. I'll go to Lois if Lois has additional thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really odd because one assumes it's part of the plan to find out where the money's coming from, but it seems to be more that the king just wants to humiliate him by making it impossible for him to have the big feast that he was planning to have. But I mean, what on earth is the point of that? I don't know.
I suppose if he has no access to outsiders, then he can't sneak gold in. I think that was the logic. But and he hasn't rescinded that order since the bag was stolen. Might be something like that. Eric.
I was going to say that if you were staging this now, you could have a moment where, like, it's either an iPod or iPhone or whatever, or the equivalent for, like Android phone, where he's just yelling at Alexa or Siri to shut up, stop the music. And obviously it doesn't work because, accents and stuff and just kind of, voice recognition software is not that evolved yet.
Sirens cease to sing. Alexa, stop the playlist. Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, I think Lois was right when she said I think the king ordered all the merchants in town to refuse to do business with him, to humiliate him, just because the king's kind of a terrible person. That's
all very clever.
Yeah. But what was really striking to me about this scene is, like, Andelocia seems to have a kind of change of personality. Up to now, he's just sort of been like, woo, party. He really doesn't care about anything.
Yeah.
He just wants to have fun. And then his money bag is stolen. He's like, oh, my father was right all along. And he turns all like, what's the guy in the tub who's
Diogenes.
Yeah, he turns all Diogenes on us. Where did that come from?
Well, it's the betrayal as well, isn't it? It's she lured me in with her feminine wiles, and he goes, really,
moron. What did you think?
He's young. Lois.
Yeah. It tells us, I guess, that the music we were hearing was female voices singing, because that's why it calls them sirens. So that might, we don't have the words for the song, but that might be relevant if we had them. And I guess the other thing is just that this is an amazing change of the kind that happens all the time in plays. I mean, first somebody is crazy about a woman, and the minute something goes wrong, it's all this misogyny comes pouring out. It's not just this woman, it's all women, they're all terrible. He's just doing it.
Yes, I mean, we can take heart at least that it's coming from someone who's not supposed to be there as a moral exemplar. That he is supposed to be a bit of an arse, and we're supposed to learn by example of not to be an Andelocia. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, interesting question of motivation, whether the instruction for others not to deal with Andelocia, whether that is issued before or after Athelstane got his hand on the purse, or his proxy did.
He does give the order before he gets the purse.
He gives it in the previous scene.
Yeah, it's the end of the previous scene, and then he walks off and walks straight back on again. And his daughter tells him, "Oh, look, here's a magic purse." So yeah, I mean, there's a bit of ambiguity there, but anyway, we need to move on. We need to move into what is listed as a separate act, as Act 4 chorus, or it's the second chorus between scenes 6 and 7. So Act 4 chorus, chorate for us, please.
Gentiles, if e'er you have beheld the passions, the combats of his soul, who being a king, by some usurping hand hath been disposed from all his royalties. Even such a soul, such eyes, such heart swollen big with sighs and tears, the star-crossed son of Fortunatus wears. His thoughts crowned him a monarch in the morn, yet now he's bandied by the seas in scorn from wave to wave. His golden treasure's spoil makes him in desperate language to entreat the winds to spend their fury on his life. But they, being mild in tyranny, or scorning to triumph in a wretch's funeral, toss him to Cyprus. What treachery cannot this serpent gold entice us to? He robs his brother of the Soldan's prize, and having got his wish, the wishing hat, he does not, as he vowed, seek misery, but hopes by that to win his purse again, and in that hope from Cyprus is he fled. If your swift thoughts clap on their wonted wings, in Genoa may you take this fugitive, where have cozened many jewelers, To England back he comes. Step but to court, and there distinguished, and step but to court, and there disguised you find him bargaining for jewels with the beauteous Agripyne, who, wearing at her side the virtuous purse, he clasps her in his arms, and as a raven, gripping the tender-hearted nightingale, so flies he with her, wishing in the air to be transported to some wilderness. Imagine this the place. See, here they come. Since they themselves have tongues, mine shall be dumb.
And just before we go into that scene, so the question from the room of why the hell doesn't he just use the magical hat to get the money bag back? I think we can just say he's not in a good place at the end of the previous scene, and he's not properly thinking ahead, and it's a demonstration of actually just emo spirit, as we were talking earlier. And he gets over himself once he gets the hat, and that's that. We don't see him robbing his brother, which is probably not a bad thing because his brother was quite boring, so not fussed about that particularly. Though, of course, seeing his brother being a bit put out. But his brother wasn't that fussed about having the hat. He was going, these are all magical things I'm not that into. So, yeah. Hold on to any additional thoughts on that. May come back to that a little later on. Let's get back into some action and find out what's going on. We've been told that Andelocia and Agripyne are coming on stage. Indeed, they do. Act 4, Scene 1 or Scene 7. Enter Andelocia with the wishing hat on and Agripyne in his hand.
What devil art thou that affrightest me thus, hailing a princess from her father's court, to spoil her in this savage wilderness?
Indeed, the devil and the pick purse should always fly together, for they are sworn brothers. But, Madam Covetousness, I am neither a devil, as you call me, nor a jeweler, as I call myself. No, nor a juggler. Yet, ere you and I part, we'll have some legerdemain together. Do you know me?
I'm betrayed. This is the Cypriot. Forgive me. 'Twas not I that changed thy purse, but Athelstane, my father, sent me home. And here's thy purse again. Here are thy jewels. And I, in satisfaction of all wrongs...
Talk not you of satisfaction. This is some recompense, that I have you. 'Tis not the purse I regard. Put it off, and I'll mince it as small as pie meat. The purse? Hang the purse. Were that gone, I can make another, and another, and another, aye, and another. 'Tis not the purse I care for, but the purser. You, aye, you. Is not a shame that a king's daughter, a fair lady, a lady not for lords, but for monarchs, should for gold sell her love, and when she has her own asking, and that there stands nothing between, then to cheat your sweetheart. Oh, fie, a she-coney catcher, you must be dealt fondly with.
Enjoin what pains thou wilt, and I'll endure them, so thou wilt send me to my father's court.
Nay, God's lid, you're not gone so. Set your heart at rest, for I have set up my rest, that, except you can run swifter than a hart, home you go not. What pains shall I lay upon you? Let me see. I could serve you now, but a slippery touch. I could get a young king or 2 or 3 of you, and then send you home and bid their grandsire king nurse them. I could pepper you, but I will not.
Oh, do not violate my chastity.
No, why, I tell you, I'm not given to the flesh, though I savor in your nose a little of the devil. I could run away else and starve you here.
If I must die, doom me some easier death.
Or transform you, because you love picking, into a squirrel, and make you pick out a poor living among the nut trees. But I will not neither.
What will my gentle Andelocia do?
Oh, now you come to your old bias of cogging.
I pray thee, Andelocia, let me go. Send me to England, and by heaven I swear, thou from all kings on earth, my love, shall bear.
Shall I, in faith?
In faith thou shalt.
Ah, here, God of mercy. Now, thou shalt not go.
Oh God.
Nay, do you hear, lady? Cry not your best, no, nor curse me not. If you think but a crabbed thought of me, the spirit that carried you in mine arms through the air will tell me all. Therefore, set your Sunday face upon it. Since you'll love me, I'll love you. I'll marry you and lie with you and beget little jugglers. Marry, home you get not. England, you'll say, is yours, but Agripyne, love me, and I will make the whole world thine.
I care not for the world, thou murderest me. Between my sorrow and the scalding sun, I faint, and quickly will my life be done. My mouth is like a furnace, and dry heat drinks up my blood. Oh God, my heart will burst. I die, unless some moisture quench my thirst.
Thou'rt, now I'm worse than e'er I was before. For half the world I would not have her die. Here's neither spring, nor ditch, nor rain, nor dew, nor bread, nor drink. My lovely Agripyne, be comforted. See, here are apple trees.
And I'm going to pause us here because it's an important callback to remember that in a previous act, they did some gardening and planted 2 trees on stage. It took a while. We had to have some music to cover the action. A singing priest, as I recall. And yeah, we've got 2 trees on stage. One was planted by Vice. It's lush and plentiful and lovely with golden leaves and apples. And we have Virtue's slightly saggy tree because nobody's virtuous these days. So just a little call back to that. We're in a wilderness. He's whisked her away into a wilderness. Some threats of sexual violence, but they're only threats. He's this scene is doing all sorts of slightly dodgy things. Straightforward revenge initially, but then who's manipulating who when we come to the promises made later on in the scene. It's once again, what do we say about Agrippine here of it wasn't meanness at the beginning of the scene as well. Just, it wasn't me, it was Dad. Yeah, nothing to do with me. I mean, there's something very slippery and dodgy about the way she's presented. I don't know if anyone wants to throw any thoughts at this stage. I was only really stopping to elucidate what the hell's going on. But Rachael.
This is kind of like what he was doing in the Shoemaker's Holiday, where we have this dialogue that if it was in any other play, like from her saying, "Oh, it was my dad," that it would be believable and we would believe her. But he sets up these scenes and these situations so that even though it's this dialogue or way of speaking that's you see in other plays, playing to these tropes of other plays, it sort of rehashes these cliches and gives us these whole new situations that we don't exactly know where they're going to go, and then he gives us that threat of marriage, this sort of PG version of threatening to rape somebody or something like that it's like, that you'll see in like younger media or like something to get past the censors. But that there's the implication underneath that of the sexualized violence through the institution.
Lynn.
Yeah, both these characters are I don't like them. You kind of can't blame Andelocia too much for nicking the hat and going to find his money. But then, he's such a liar too. Oh, I don't care about the purse. I could make new purses. That's totally a lie. I came for you. And then, no, he doesn't carry through with it. But threats of sexual violence are sexual violence. That's just gross. And she's like, "Oh, I'll marry you. I promise. I'll love you. Just take me home." He's a liar. She's a liar. She's a thief. He's A reprobate. Ew.
Well, he's a thief as well. I mean, he's literally just stolen the hat. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's this thing of we're not really here rooting for anyone, are we? We're just really curious to know who's going to get their comeuppance first, or how the comeuppance. Because I'm assuming there's going to be a comeuppance because we've got 2 trees and they're being referenced. Eric, then Rachael.
Also, because the title was The Pleasant Comedy of Fortunatus, of Old Fortunatus. So it's like, you kind of expect that it will end well. The question is, who will it end well for?
It hasn't ended well for Old Fortunatus. He's been dead for about 3 scenes. On a pretty basic level of how do comedies work, nobody dying is quite important.
Yeah.
There are a few exceptions to that rule, but yeah. Rachael, then Lois.
Yeah, more to what I was saying about the rehashing of scenes is yesterday with Agripyne being introduced and Cyprus being introduced, I expected some sort of love plot, but instead this seems to have descended into, Andelocia, who seemed like some sort of comedic vice figure yesterday, having full-on mad scenes, and turned into a mad scene for the actor. Yeah,
because we had at the end of the last session, just before the action we did today, the whole stuff with Agripyne and various different these intersecting love plots, and well, we've done nothing with that at all since that scene. So I may be picked up again as a thread later on, but if it's not, then I'm sort of looking back going, well, it's interesting character setup to a degree, but also possibly cuttable, because it's a long play. We need to find a few cuts. So we'll see if that it may get picked up again. It may be a thing that happens later on. So let's not prejudge that yet. Lois, then Alan.
Yeah. Well, since the phrase pleasant comedy has come up, I think pleasant just means funny, because pleasant, I mean, this is a very unpleasant comedy so far anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to be playing for that many laughs at all. I mean, it's not even awfully. It's in this fairy tale sort of universe. So it's in a morality play universe, but it doesn't seem to, apart from a bit of comedy business from Shadow, and even that's pretty dense and difficult to get into. I think there was a joke yesterday. Or was it Monday? No, I think on Tuesday we had a joke. I wrote boom boom next to it. I went, yeah, there's an actual one-liner. Thank you very much. But there hasn't been that much. Even the wit's been a bit strained. So it's generically question. That question of genre is quite interesting here. Is what this play is actually intending to get as an audience response. Alan.
Yeah, I was thinking, talking about cuts. I don't think one will cut the previous scene, the one we did at the end of yesterday's session, where Agripyne was being manipulative with all of the chaps around her, and basically she's continuing to act to tie.
Yeah,
she'll say whatever she thinks is going to give her the best advantage.
Yeah, it's just that it spent an awful long time setting up what seemed it was more about actually the men in that scene is the question. Can we get to that point quicker? But we may not need to. It may be a plot line that we pull upon later on. It's definitely very important to our character, if that is what we have here. Because character is a really interesting question with this play that we might get to at the end of tomorrow's session. Okay, anyway. I only paused to point out there are 2 trees, but we got a lot of mileage out of that. Anyway, there are 2 trees. Agripyne has just suddenly gone, oh my God, I need a drink. Don't worry, there are some trees. Apple trees. Agripyne, take up the cudgels.
Climb up, for God's sake. Reach me some of them.
Look up. Which of these apples likes thee best?
This hath a withered face. 'Tis some sweet fruit. Not that my sorrows are too sour already.
Come hither. Here are apples like gold.
Oh, aye. For God's sake, gather some of these. Ay me, would God I were at home again.
Stand farther, lest I chance to fall on thee.
And climbs up to gather.
Oh, here be rare apples, rare red-cheeked apples that cry, come kiss me. Apples, hold your peace, I'll teach you to cry.
And he eats one.
O England, shall I ne'er behold thee more?
Agrippyne, 'tis a most sugared, delicious taste in one's mouth. But when 'tis down, 'tis as bitter as gall.
Yet gather some of them. Oh, that a princess should pine for food. Were I at home again, I should disdain to stand thus and complain.
Here's one apple that grows highest, Agrippyne, and I could reach that. I'll come down.
And he starts fishing with his girdle for it.
Make haste, for the hot sun does scald my cheeks.
Oh, the sun kiss thee. Catch, put on my hat. I will have yonder highest apple, though I die for it.
I'd not want to be sunburned, wretched me. Oh, England, would I were again in thee.
And ta-da! Agrippyne goes back. My God, the man's an idiot. Anyway, on the exit, we don't know how magically Agrippyne exits. Well, in the same way, we don't know how that magical trick was done earlier. Maybe a trapdoor, who knows? Andelocia leaps down from the tree.
Zounds! Agrippyne, stay! Oh, I am undone. Sweet Agrippyne, if thou hearst my voice, take pity of me and return again. She flies like lightning. Oh, she hears me not. I wish myself into a wilderness, and now I shall turn wild. Here I shall famish, here die, here cursing die, here raving die, and thus will wound my breast and rend my hair. What hills of flint are grown upon my brows? Ah, me, 2 forked horns. I am turned beast. I have abused 2 blessings, wealth and knowledge, wealth in my purse and knowledge in my hat, by which, being born into the courts of kings, I might have seen the wondrous works of Jove, acquired experience, learning, wisdom, truth. But I in wildness tottered out my youth, and therefore must turn wild, must be a beast, an ugly beast. My body horns must bear, because my soul deformity doth wear. Lives none within this wood? If none but I live here, thanks heaven, for here none else shall die.
And with his newly sprouted horns, by the sounds of it, he lies down and sleeps under the tree. Enter, returning by popular acclaim, enter Fortune, Vice, Virtue, the priest from earlier. There are satyrs, always nice to have some more satyrs with music. And they're playing before as in comes Fortune. They play a while.
See where my new-turned devil has built his hell.
Virtue, who conquers now, the fool's ta'en.
Oh, sleepy sin.
Sweet tunes, wake him again.
Music sounds a while and then ceases.
Vice sits too heavy on his drowsy soul. Music's sweet concord cannot pierce his ear. Sing, and amongst your songs, mix bitter scorn.
Those that tear virtue must by vice be torn.
And we have the song.
Virtue stand aside, the fool is caught. Laugh to see him, laugh aloud to wake him. Folly's nets are wide and neatly wrought. Mock his horns and laugh to see vice take him.
Laugh, laugh in scorn. Who's the fool? The fool. He wears a horn.
And Andelocia wakens and stands up.
Virtue stand aside, mock him, mock him, mock him. Laugh aloud to see him, call him fool. Error gave him suck, now sorrow rock him. Send the riotous beast to the madness school.
Ha 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 ha. Laugh, laugh in scorn. Who's the fool? The fool, he wears a horn.
Virtue stand aside, your school he hates. Laugh aloud to see him, mock, mock, mock him. Vanity and hell keep open gates. He's in, and a new nurse, despair, must rock him.
Laugh in scorn. Fool, 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 where still the horn.
And Vice and Virtue, once all the singing's done, Vice and Virtue hold apples out to Andelocia, Vice laughing, Virtue grieving.
Oh me, what hell is this? Fiends, tempt me not. Thou glorious devil, hence. Oh, now I see this fruit is thine. Thou hast deformed me. Idiot, avoid thy gifts I loathe to taste. Away, since I am entered madness school, as good to be a beast as be a fool. Away, why tempt you me? Some powerful grace come and redeem me from this hideous place.
To her hath Andelocia all his life sworn fealty, and wouldst thou forsake her now?
Whose blessed tongue names Andelocia?
Hers who, attended on by the destinies, shortened thy father's life, and lengthens thine.
Oh, sacred queen of chance, now shorten mine, else let thy deity take off this shame.
Woo her, 'twas she that set it on thy head.
She laughs to see me metamorphosed.
Yes, during that little sequence, Andelocia should have knelt and now rises.
Woo me, and I'll take off this ugly scorn.
Woo me, and I'll clap on another horn.
Oh, I am beset with anguish, shame, and death. Oh, bid the fates work fast and stop my breath.
No, Andelocia, thou must live to see worse torments, for thy follies light on thee. This golden tree, which did thine eyes entice, was planted here by Vice. Lo, here stands Vice. How often hast thou sued to win her grace?
Till now I never did behold her face.
Thou didst behold her at thy father's death, when thou in scorn didst violate his will. Thou didst behold her when thy outstretched arm catched at the highest bough, the loftiest vice, the fairest apple, but the foulest price. Thou didst behold her when thy liquorish eyes fed on the beauty of fair Agripyne, because thou hadst gold, thou thought'st all women thine. When look'st thou off from her? For they whose souls still revel in the night of vanity on the fair cheeks of vice still fix their eye. Because her face doth shine, and all her bosom bears silver moons, thou wast enamored of her. But hadst thou upward looked and seen these shames, or viewed her round about, and in this glass seen idiots' faces, heads of devils in hell, and read this ha ha he, this merry story, thou wouldst have loathed her. Where, by loving her, thou bearest this face, and wearest this ugly head. And if she once can bring thee to this place, loud sounds these ha ha he, she'll laugh apace.
Oh, retransform me to a glorious shape, and I will learn how I may love to hate her.
I cannot transform thee. Woo this woman.
This woman? Wretched is my state when I, to find out wisdom, to a fool must fly.
Fool, clear thine eyes. This is bright Arete. This is poor Virtue. Care not how the world doth crown her head. The world laughs her to scorn. Yet, sibi sapit, Virtue knows her worth. Run after her. She'll give thee these and these, crowns and bay garlands, honors, victories. Serve her, and she will fetch thee pay from heaven, or give thee some bright office in the stars.
Immortal Arete, Virtue divine,
And
oh,
kneels.
smile on me, and I will still be thine.
Smile thou on me, and I will still be thine. Though I'm jealous of thy apostasy, I'll entertain thee. Here, come taste this tree. Here's physic for thy sick deformity.
'Tis bitter. This fruit I shall ne'er digest.
Try once again, the bitterness soon dies.
Mine's sweet, taste mine.
but being down 'tis sour, and mine being down has a delicious taste. The path that leads to virtue's court is narrow, thorny and up a hill, a bitter journey, but being gone through, you'll find all heavenly sweets. The entrance is all flinty, but at the end to towers of pearl and crystal you ascend.
Oh, delicate. Oh, sweet ambrosian relish. And see, my ugliness drops from my brows. Thanks, beauteous Arete. Oh, had I now my hat and purse again, how I would shine and gild my soul with naught but thoughts divine.
That shall be tried. Take fruit from both these trees. By help of them, win both thy purse and hat. I will instruct thee how, for on my wings to England shalt thou ride. Thy virtuous brother is with that shadow who attends on thee in London. There I'll set thee presently. But if thou lose our favors once again, to taste her sweets, those sweets must prove thy bane.
Vice, who shall now be crowned with victory?
She that triumphs at last, and that must I.
And they exit. So, all the stuff that's been set up ages ago is sort of coming together. So many sort of references or possible future references and things are landing into this, as well as stuff from the time and so we've got horns. So presumably when he enters and he's wearing the hat, he's already got preset horns under his hat, because he takes the hat off pretty much just before she disappears and he notices horns. Unless someone runs on and starts adding horns to it, I think that's the most practical way of doing that. Especially if he's up a tree at the time for the horns to start sprouting. But other ways are possible. I'm sure the satyrs just take the horns away or something, or if you've got a spare satyr, that's what you use them for. Oh yeah, so much stuff. I mean, just having a song of people just coming on going ha 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 ha. It's just so mean. I love it. Briony, then Rachael.
Yeah, I love the pointing and laughing song. But before that, I nearly commented in the chat about the clumsy apple rape metaphor we had going on. But thinking about it, that's actually some of the most delicate writing around that subject that we've really seen for the time, because normally it's quite, it's sometimes even just a stage direction, or ripped or whatever. But yeah, the whole apple, yeah, I liked that.
And of course, we as the audience should have remembered from earlier, which tree to climb up and which are the good apples and which are the bad apples, and we know where it's going. Though, of course, we don't necessarily expect that Andelocia is going to be so stupid as to just hold my hat, will you please? With the character who's been sitting on stage just going, oh, woe is me if I want to go home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. And lo and behold, off she goes. Especially if she's sitting over the trapdoor that's about to whisk her home. Rachael.
Yeah, the two trees, even though they're virtue and vices trees in this, in the Garden of Eden, aren't there those two trees, and one's the tree of knowledge, and then they get kicked out because God doesn't want them to get at the other tree because then it'll make them immortal. Yeah. And I think there's some of those vibes coming in there, and that they're mixing, with the Greek mythology to avoid the whole religion issue.
Yes, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, and after the tree of knowledge debacle, God does actually set up an angel with a flaming sword to make sure nobody's going near that tree of life thing, because otherwise man would have power similar to God, and that's not going to happen. Admittedly, it's his own fault. He should have put some decent defences up in the first place. I'm sure. Maybe the angels were busy that day. I don't know. Anyway, going off on a tangent there. Eric.
I do like how Fortune gives him another chance, and there's a part of me going, is she just waiting for him to fail again?
Well, that's a morality play thing of actually you might fail once, and then you learn the lesson, and then they stress test to see if you actually have learnt the lesson. So that's sort of what this is. It's like you can eat the good fruit, go with virtue. Let's just see if you've really learnt your lesson, whether if we give you all the magical things again, that you don't still make all the really terrible choices that you made earlier. Lois?
Yeah, I remember reading a book on the morality play, which argued that it was just essential to keep reminding people that they could be forgiven. I mean, that they were likely, apparently it was worse if they didn't believe that, because they would just sink into despair and, run a completely criminal life. And so you get these crazy plots, which we find hard to believe, where people just keep doing horrible things and being forgiven, and doing really unforgivable things and being forgiven. And I think there's something of that going on here. I mean, this man seems to me absolutely hopeless, and I don't understand why anybody ever forgives him anything. But that seems to be the point of the plot.
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the parallels. I sort of think of more modern parallels is finding a certain weird Peer Gyntish quality to some of this, especially with the way that we keep flipping to a slightly different location and different setups. In it, it's not a particularly good parallel, but it's just something that sort of was leaping to mind. We've got lots of costume detail coming up again, reminding us all the stuff about Vice having silver moons and written on their costume that we had earlier. Just in case anyone misunderstood what these the bosom silver moons were supposed to be. And it's there's almost the way that Vice's apples, they're sweet, but when they go down in a bad way. I don't know. I was getting a drugs thing with that as well. I know that's not what the author's going for, but it just did. There's an Alice in Wonderland quality to some of this as well. Anyway, Eric.
I was going to comment on the when he climbs the tree. I was thinking, like, it's kind of a mixture of, like, the John Lilly Midas tale, and the case is altered with Onion being chased the tree by garlic, although that was a lot funnier.
I mean, I have to say, I've definitely found, now that we've sort of got to this element of the story, some of the disappointments we were having earlier, things are starting to pay off in interesting ways. I mean, I'm not saying that it's an hilarious comedy, but it's definitely engaging, and there's all sorts of really weird thoughts going on in my mind at the moment, which I'm finding very interesting. So it's definitely doing something. Any other thoughts before we launch into our final scene of the session? We might pause in the middle of it, I don't know. So this is Act 4, Scene 2, or running scene number 8. Enter Athelstane, Lincoln with Agripyne, Cyprus, Galloway, Cornwall, Chester, Longaville, and Montrose.
Lincoln, how sett'st thou her at liberty?
No other prison held her but your court. There in her chamber hath she hid herself these 2 days, only to shake off that fear which her late violent rapture cast again upon her.
Where hath the beauteous Agripyne been?
In heaven or hell, in or without the world, I know not which, for as I oft have seen, when angry Tempest hath curled her locks, a whirlwind come, and from her frizzled brows snatch up a handful of those sweaty pearls that stood upon her forehead, which a while, being by the boisterous wind hung in the air, at length hath flung them down and raised a storm. Even with such fury was I wearied up, by such force held prisoner in the clouds, and thrown by such a tempest down again.
Some soul is damned in hell for this black deed.
I have the purse safe, and anon your grace shall hear the wondrous history at full.
Tell me, tormentor, shall fair Agripyne without more difference be now christened mine?
My choice must be my father's fair consent.
Then shall thy choice end in this Cyprus prince. Before the sun shall 6 times more arise, his royal marriage will we solemnize. Proclaim this honoured match, Come, Agripyne, I am glad thou'rt here, more glad the purse is mine.
And as they are going in, enter Andelocia and Shadow. They are disguised as, heaven help us all, Irish costermongers. Agrippine, Longaville and Montrose stay listening to them. The rest exit.
Buy any apples? Fine apples of Damasco.
Fine apples of Damasco.
Pippins.
Green apples of Damasco Pippins.
Aye, Damasco Pippins.
Damasco Pippins.
Damasco apples? Good, my lord Montrose, call yonder fellows.
Sirrah Costermonger.
Who calls? Peeps of Damasco. Fern peeps. Aye, Freitas, the sweetest apple in the world. 'Tis better than the plum water or apple John.
By my troth, madam, 'tis meat Damasco Pippins. Look here, else.
I dare not say as the Irishman and my countrymen say, 'tis the goodness of the fruit. No say 'tis very tree. Mistress by St. Patrick's hand, 'tis tear Damasco apple.
Fairest fruit that ever I beheld. Damasco apples, wherefore are they good?
What is your price for half a score of these?
Half a score, half a score. Ah, that is those money, master.
Aye, 10, half a score, that's 5 and 5.
Five and five, by my trotness, Christ save me, la. I cannot tell what be the price of five and five, but 'tis 3 crowns for 1 pippin. That is the price if you take 'em.
Aye, I fed 'tis no less for Damasco.
3 crowns for 1? What wondrous virtues have they?
Oh, it is fine Damasco apple, and she'll make you a great deal wise, and make you no fool, and make fine memory.
And make this face be more fire and amiable, and make this eyes look always lovely, and make all the court and country burn in desire to kiss that known sweet countenance.
Apples to make a lady beautiful. Madame, that's excellent.
These Irishmen, some say, are great dissemblers, and I fear these two the badge of their own country wear.
By my troth and by St. Patrick's head, and as Christ save me, la, 'tis no dissembler. The Irishman now and then, they cut their countryman's throat, but yet in faith he loved thy countryman. 'Tis no dissembler. This fine Damasco apple can make thy sweet countenance, but I can take no less but 3 crowns for 1. I wear out my naked legs and my foot and my toes, and run hither and thither to Damasco for them.
As Christmas save me, la, he speaks true. Peeps fiend.
I'll try what power lies in Damasco fruit. Here are 10 crowns for 3, so fare you well.
Lord Longaville, buy some.
Not I, but I buy, not I. Hang them, they are toys. Come, madam, let us go.
And exit Agrippine, Longaville, and Montrose. I think we'll just pause there. I think, you know, just to remind everyone that we're sight reading with people who don't necessarily do accents, and that's entirely fine. As indeed as is fine as these fine apples that we have here. We've got. I mean, there's something. Yeah, it's an awkward series of stereotypes that are being openly played for here. But the idea of just turning up with all these random apples, of course, following on very logically from the previous scene, that has some weight to it. That sort of works. And we've sort of got this mini callback to the sort of who's Agripyne going to marry. Oh, it's going to be Cyprus. There we are. So that's what all that scene earlier did. Has basically just been answered there. Any thoughts in the room before we go into the final sequence of this scene? Eric.
I would like to apologize to any Irish people I know and friends who are Irish. I find it amusing that it's like, oh yeah, just put on a different hat and dress up and do an accent, and it's fine. They won't recognize you. It's fine.
Yeah, well, that's the convention of the time. Lynn, were you waving? No. Okay, so various people have exited, but Andelocia and Shadow are still on, and there might be some other people still on, but Montrose will enter in a moment anyway. So Andelocia and Shadow, speaking simultaneously, are still in presumably their accents.
Saint Patrick and Saint Peter
Saint
and all
Patrick
the
and Saint
holy
Peter and
angels
all the holy
looked
angels
upon that
looked
face
upon
and
that
make it
face.
fair.
Yeah.
Re-enter Montrose softly.
She's spell, I warned.
Peace, Shadow. Buy any pippins, buy.
Peeps, fiend,
Tabasco
apples.
Came not Lord Longaville to buy some fruit?
No, faith, master, here came no lords nor ladies, but thine own sweet self.
'Tis well, say nothing. Here's 6 crowns for 2. You say the virtues are to make one strong.
Yes, faith,
fat.
and make sweet countenance and strong too.
'Tis excellent. Here, farewell. If these prove, I'll conquer men by strength, women by love.
Exit Montrose. Re-enter Longaville.
Why, this is rare.
Peace, master. Here comes another fool.
Peeps, buy any peeps of Tabasco.
Did not the Lord Montrose return to you?
No, faith,
No,
sweet
faith.
master, no lord did turn to us. Peeps,
Fiend.
I am glad of it. Here are 9 crowns for 3. What other virtues besides making fair?
Oh, 'twill make thee wondrous wise.
And thou shalt be no more a fool, but sweet face and wise.
'Tis rare. Farewell. I never yet durst woo. None loves me. Now I'll try what these can do.
Exit Longaville.
Well, so this is admirable. Shadow, here end my torments in St. Patrick's purgatory, but thine shall continue longer.
Did I not clap on a good false Irish face?
It became thee rarely.
Yeah, that's lamentable that a false face should become any man.
Oh, thou art a gull. 'Tis all the fashion now. Which fashion, because we'll keep, step thou abroad, let not the world want fools. Whilst thou art commencing thy knavery there, I'll proceed Dr. Dodipole here. That done, thou, Shadow, and I will fat ourselves to behold the transformation of these fools. Go, fly.
I fear nothing but that whilst we strive to make others fools, we shall wear the coxcombs ourselves. Pip's fine.
Exit Shadow. Enter Ampedo.
Lord, here's my brother whom I've abused. His presence makes me blush. It strikes me dead to think how I am metamorphosed. Fine peeps of Tabasco.
For shame, cast off this mask.
Wilt thou buy any peeps?
Mock me no longer with idle apparitions. Many a land have I with weary feet and a sick soul measured to find thee, and when thou art found, my greatest grief is that thou art not lost. Yet lost thou art, thy fame, thy wealth are lost, thy wits are lost, and thou hast in their stead with shame and cares and misery crowned thy head. That shadow that pursues thee filled mine ears with sad relation of thy wretchedness. Where is the purse? And where my wishing hat?
Where? Are you created constable? You stand so much upon interrogatories. The purse is gone, let that fret you, and the hat is gone, let that mad you. I run thus through all trades to overtake them. If you be quiet, follow me and help. If not, fly from me and hang yourself. Wilt thou buy any pippins?
And exit Andelocia.
Oh, how I grieve to see him thus transformed. Yet from the circles of my jealous eyes he shall not start till he have repossessed those virtuous jewels, which found once again, more cause they ne'er shall give me to complain. Their worth shall be consumed in murdering flames, and end my grief, his riot and our shames.
and exit. So it's quite a nice scene that that we had Agripyne going, yeah, I'll buy one of your apples, yeah, and then the others going, no, we won't buy any of these apples, no, we wouldn't be seen dead buying these apples, and then they sneak in one by one and go, how much are the apples again, and what do they do? Oh, all right, lovely, excellent. I'll have one of them. I also we were talking about disguises earlier, about, the convention. I just love the way the brother comes on and just goes, oh, stop it. I know exactly who you are. This isn't funny. So, yeah, and actually it's one of my favourite bits of Ampedo that we've had. And he's just, I say, he just doesn't care about the magical objects for himself. It's really not the issue. He just wants his brother to be virtuous and good and things, so, which is not inherently a terrible thing. Lynn, then Briony, then Rachael.
I know we've all been kind of hard on Ampedo, that, what a wet blanket. Yeah, but I kind of relate to him.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And he's considerably less annoying here, I have to say. It was earlier scenes where I found, he just wasn't. He was laying it on a bit thick, whereas this had a bit of heart to it. I like that. Briony.
See, I've gone the other way. I could forgive him. He was just a different kind of person, and fair enough. But now he's gonna get it back and burn it. What a dick! Really? Take the money. I said this from the start.
Yes, it has to be said. We all had a bit of a vote on the first session as to which of the gifts of fortune we'd go for. Most of us went for health, actually, and there was some split voting. But I think Briony was very, very keen on taking the money. Oh well. Rachael, then Eric.
I was gonna say, I think the humor in this is the kind of what we get between Ampedo and Andelocia here at the end, that it's sort of that drag race, like these reading somebody sort of humors, or sibling relationship type thing. Like, he's going at him about his appearance and like these things, like, I mean, in this case it's a complete disguise, but I feel like I feel like that's how you were talking about the genuineness. There's something very sibling, like, are you gonna do, like, you're not gonna go along with this, or you're not gonna do this, and just both going back and forth with each other.
Eric.
I find it interesting that there isn't that element of, I can't remember which play it was, but one of the like fools with money without wit, and all those things. I think, where it wasn't the money that was inherently bad, but it was the sort of. But here it seems to be just having wealth turns you into something. But Andelocia is actually sort of, I don't know. It's interesting because neither of them are particularly like. Ampedo is presented as virtuous, but not really virtuous based on what he's saying. And sort of doing, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's well, yeah. I mean, it's we have had at this point that wealth in itself is not a terrible thing. It's just how you use it and what it does to you. I mean, and of course, Andelocia here is, in theory at least, on the path of virtue. He's doing this is part of his sort of test to see whether if he gets the items back again, and it's sort of fortune playing fast and loose with people. I mean, fortune is this really ambiguous figure in this, because fortune don't take sides. Fortune just spins that wheel, or, as I much prefer the earlier image, the fortune just tosses that football into the field, and you just run for it, and it's slippery, and it will bounce in different random directions, and you won't be able to hold on to it, and stuff. Yeah, it's the whole Irishness of the scene and the way everyone's talking about them is really quite awkward, but that could be shaved off the edges of, and could be made much less of an issue. But there's certainly the way they're talking about the reason that people are distrusting them is because they are Irish, and therefore they are automatically untrustworthy. Yeah, that's but again, that's coming from characters who aren't necessarily very nice. So yeah, I don't think I'd quite go there. We got a reference to Dr. Doddypole. Whether that's explicitly a reference to the play of the same name, which is on about exactly the same time as this play, that seems reasonable. So it looks like just a little name check there. I didn't bring up earlier just the whole horns in the previous scene. Is that again a little callback to Dr. Faustus as well? Because there is the horny sequence in one version of the text that is very explicitly played for laughs. So it might be another one of those internal callbacks things. Any other thoughts on this close of the session today? Before I go around the room for final thoughts. No? Has everyone run out? I don't know. So we are at least 3/4 of the way through. I think we're actually slightly more than 3/4 of the way through. I think tomorrow's session is actually going to be relatively short in terms of material. I think it's the shortest of the sessions. And yeah, I definitely feel that the play has picked up on all the stuff, pretty much all the threads it was dangling earlier. Maybe some of the threads were dangled slightly too long, Lee, but I say the cuts are probably necessary for a text like this. But yeah, I think a lot of my earlier reservations I have quietly walked back on a little bit as being quite important. And the long scenes between the two brothers feel more important now that the action is focusing on at least one of the brothers. So I'm feeling that so far. But yeah, final thoughts about this as a player's performance. I'll go to Dan, who wasn't here for the first session, but you have been here for 2 now, and you feeling more like you've got a handle on this play this session.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm sad I won't be here tomorrow. No, I'm a fan of Dekker, as I said before, and so I was a little bit lost yesterday in terms of where the play was going after Fortunatus died. And we had stopped at a point where the characters hadn't been fully developed yet, or at least the following plot hadn't been developed. And now I've got a sense of setting, who's playing what role, what type of play this is, which should have been pretty obvious from the beginning, really. Just pretty much a straight morality play, I feel like, just during the Elizabethan times. I think the title's a bit misleading if you want to read a title page, which is not the first time that this has happened, if you want to read it as a pleasant comedy, and then think this is going to be a huge humorous play. But I do think there's a light touch to the entire thing. It's interesting to me to read this right after Shoemaker's Holiday because they were written and performed around the same time. I mean, this is a holiday play. And I think when that's kept in mind with the themes of it, it's easy. I think it's easy for someone like me, I guess, to get wrapped up, to easily follow along the storylines and want to see, want to watch people get knocked down a couple notches. No, I'm really enjoying it, and I would love to see this actually being performed.
And what's really nice, actually, structurally, is going, I know where the interval lives now for a modern production. Whereas before we're going, well, maybe where would you? We got to a point where, okay, we could start hunting for a logical interval point. But actually, it's just after he loses the bag, and just before he whisks off, and there's a nice chorus bit that gets us back into the action, so it doesn't feel too jarring that there's been a gap of nothing. Covered by a chorus. There's an interval we can put in there just before we go into what's called Act 4. It does mean that we'd need to trim quite a lot of what came before, because that makes that quite a long act, first half. But I also feel that there's actually a reasonable amount of text in the first half of the play, or more than first half of the play, that could be quietly excised if to make it not a ridiculously long evening. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes, my response is kind of the opposite of Dan's. I thought I knew where I kind of was at first, and I've just gotten more and more lost as today has progressed. I found that his observation that, basically it's a morality play, I found that helpful. It's like, if you think of it that way, it keeps careering out of that lane and doing other stuff. But maybe if you think of it as being on the sort of the morality trajectory, that makes it a little easier to digest. I just am having a little trouble seeing it as kind of an aesthetic whole and understanding it as a whole. And of course, the stopping and starting the first look format, I think, makes it additionally difficult to kind of see what the play's overall shape is, especially since we're not done yet. But yeah, it's not working for me right now. Sorry.
I mean, I'm quite liking, because following on from Dan's thought about morality play, but it's a slightly tricksy one. It's because in the sense that the fortune, I'm not sure what fortune has a morality in of themselves, and there's something slightly ambiguous about what fortune is doing. Obviously, virtue and vice and the way they interact, they're clear binaries, but there are all sorts of elements of just going, well, I'm not. It's almost like it's critiquing at times, and then it pulls back, and then it is very clearly a moral. And I'm wondering about how that actually lands in real world. Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested by the way this is shifting, as everyone has said, but also it's kind of, there's a part of it going, I want to see this at pace, just because we've been stopping and starting, and it kind of throws us off. I mean, the plot itself throws us off, and kind of stopping and starting is not helping that. And kind of, I mean, I've been here from the beginning, but yeah, I don't know. I think I would also, part of me is like, I would cut some choruses, but then I don't think you would cut the chorus. I'm trying to figure out which parts you would cut, basically, to shorten things. But then, I don't know. You could split it into two parts, like pre-Fortunatus, and with Fortunatus and post-Fortunatus. But then, I don't know.
Well, certainly in an audio sphere, that's that you can split it into multiple episodes, and that would work fine. I think it's mostly salami cuts. The only element that would I think get the heaviest pruning so far is the introduction of Agripyne and the other men, because I don't think there's enough payoff for what's set up there. There's a bit, but I think in terms of balance, it goes on quite long. Lois, you haven't been here since the beginning, so throw you in at the deep end. Any final thoughts about what you've dug into today?
Well, it does feel like a kind of cross between a morality play and the Arabian Nights, and I mean, there are bits that don't quite hang together in terms of morality. I mean, I think strictly speaking, the moral ending would have been for all these people to decide to let other people have the cap and the money and just go back and lead a quiet life somewhere. But instead, they're going to get it back. And I do think it's interesting that the good brother wants to get them back, presumably by whatever means. And there can't be any really good way of doing it, just in order to destroy them, because I suppose he's thinking that would be the greater good to get these things out of the world altogether. But I don't know. It's not a very pleasant story. I think there's a bit of influence of Robert Greene in this. I mean, both the Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay and James IV, where, if I remember, there was somebody with his three sons, and he meets Oberon, doesn't he? And I think one of the sons comes to a very bad end. I can't remember all the details of it, but it's sort of as if that subplot got kind of moved into this. But I think Old Fortunatus was legendary, wasn't he? I mean, people refer to Old Fortunatus as wishing cap. So I guess that's what we're getting. I mean, the other thing to remember is that there's an enormous amount of music and presumably dancing in this, and that it's nothing like as depressing as it seems if you have all of that. I mean, it would be a jolly musical comedy, which just happens to have a very moral and rather depressing story about the corrupting effect of money.
Yeah, and I think the Arabian Nights might be a good hook to sort of think of it, because there are plenty of modern variations and versions of the Arabian Nights, and actually, if you dig down to most of those stories, are pretty unpleasant. Actually, when you especially the sort of linking narration to the whole story is really horrific, and yet somehow it still gets performed before children. So it goes to show that actually tone sometimes can function in different ways when actually given performance. I'm now trying to remember, what's the play where there's some magic happening in a cave and someone just randomly decides to burn the magician's books?
I think that's is that the Triumphs
Rare
of Love and Fortune?
Triumphs
Yeah.
of Love and Fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a particularly mean moment as well, as I recall. She's going, God, why did you do that? What's it got to do with you, man? Anyway.
But it's a Dr. Faustus thing. I think all magic is black magic.
And yeah, so I think that Green and Marlowe crossover element is, I think that does definitely seem to be something that this is tapping into for explicit and implicit references that we're getting all the way through. And anyway, where was I? Briony, any final thoughts?
I guess because I'm not as experienced, I don't necessarily care as much about genre. I feel my way with the script as I go along, and this one, because of the callbacks to fairy tales, and now in this latest one, it went a little bit more Arabian Nights with the fairy tales. I'm living for that. It's exactly my sort of thing. The morality, less my thing, because I always root for the baddies and the ones that take the money, but still, I think so far it's been pretty good.
The thing is, the morality section always involves dancing satyrs. So and music. So they're clearly giving us something to compensate for any morality that they're trying to shove down our throats. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, today's instalment has bounced along rather better and rather more connectedly than the previous section of it. I'm interested in how many people are sort of referencing the Arabian Nights or Thousand Nights and a Night, because I thought that didn't actually get into circulation in England until the Burton translation, which is not till 19th century.
I genuinely don't know whether it is or not. We're sort of just bringing it up because that's a thing that we're aware of.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that it was a thing of which people in period would have been familiar with.
Lois?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but there was a quite large collection that was rather similar to the Arabian Nights, but I think it was just a collection of stories of that type. And that was certainly around, I think, by the 17th century. I don't remember even who compiled it or where they got it, but I think a lot of these things have been around, somewhere or other for ages.
I'll go to Eric before I go to Rachel's final thoughts.
Well, I was just going to say that also we have things like, Boccaccio's Decameron from like the 14th century, which they would have translated by this point. So, which generated things like Tancred and Gismunda and that kind of thing. So, yeah, that kind of folksy tales being told genre is not new to England or English literature.
Rachel, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, when did the Brothers Grimm put together their fairy tale book and have it put together?
19th century.
Yeah, they're not for a while yet.
Way.
But the stories will be about. Or many of them.
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah, I get the morality play feel, or even more though, I get some of the interludes that we were doing, because the interludes didn't always make sense, and they were more just about the journey and sometimes the musicality, and sometimes you just had a lot of this humor and stuff. I don't know, there's something I'm kind of lost on really what to say about this. I'm kind of just enjoying the journey so far. I like the way he takes scenes that people would have already seen or dialogue that people would have already heard, and he kind of offers these remixes on them and retools the dialogue to different situations that throws us off. It throws us off the trail of wherever he's going, and it gives us a completely different scene, and also doesn't. We don't know where we sit, and we don't know what to expect, and so it keeps us really engaged with the text because we don't know where we're going to go, and that we're not going to go someplace that we think we're going to go because we can't rely on genre or cliche to give us any sort of hint.
Okay, we are, nearly at the end. It's nearly all over. One more session to go. So, yeah, we're going to find out the totality of Old Fortunatus and get a sense of what we can do with it. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Mock him, mock him, mock him.